It has been a chaotic few weeks in the transfer portal. I'm here to break down my biggest winners. I've got 24 players who I think improve their NFL draft stock, their Devy fantasy football value. Let's get into it. All right, let's start here at 24. This is not a 1 to 24 ranking of my top Devy players. I'm giving a breakdown here of the players who I am most excited about in their new landing spot. And we've got to start at number 24 with Malcolm Simmons. He's a wide receiver, formerly at Auburn. Now he's at Texas Tech. Just based on the eye test, Simmons has looked really good in a tough spot at Auburn the last couple seasons. 65 receptions, 908 yards. That is as a true freshman, true sophomore. He shows vertical athleticism. He shows the ability to win over the middle of the field. I think he's a day 2 NFL draft projection, and he's a guy who's flown under the radar. Well, now at Texas Tech, he should be a really prime target. You've got the Reggie Virgil and Caleb Douglas targets off to the NFL. So a ton of vacated production. Both Virgil and Douglas are Senior Bowl guys. And quite frankly, I don't want to say Texas Tech has struck out in the portal because they've had some awesome additions, right? But they didn't get the Cam Coleman, right? They didn't get, that star wide receiver. But I think they did get a star wide receiver in Malcolm Simmons. I'm really excited about him. Up at 23 is Jace Brown. And of course, LSU is going to be talked about a pretty good amount in this episode. But I wanted to get Jace Brown in here pretty early because I loved what he did at Kansas State. Super productive, 41 receptions, 5 touchdowns. And this is what I mean by productive, 17.4 yards per reception in a rather broken Kansas State offense. That really impressed me. In terms of his film evaluation, Jace Brown is fast. He's got good hands. I think he runs a fairly good route tree. And here's the key, right? I think some folks are going to get scared off of these LSU wide receivers because it was Jace Brown, it was Trell Harris, and it was Jackson Harris, not Trell Harris, I'm sorry, Jackson Harris. They've added a few players throughout the portal, but remember, Lane Kiffin's scheme, it supports up to 3 wide receivers. So I have no concerns that Jace Brown is going to come in, get 50, 60, 70 receptions. And I think he's going to be in the day 2 conversation for the 2027 NFL draft. Here's a really sneaky one. Quarterback Colton Joseph. I really liked Colton Joseph at Old Dominion. He played his first 2 seasons there for the Monarchs. He's a dual threat quarterback, 2,600 passing yards, 1,000 rushing yards, 34 touchdowns. He really did dominate at the Sun Belt level. Now he's going to Wisconsin. And I understand, folks, the Badgers offense has been broken for a few seasons, but I do think the quarterback position has been part of that. And they've really kind of been focused in on pocket passing quarterbacks, where I think with Joseph, they're able to lean back into their run-heavy scheme. Abu Sama, the running back, is also transferring into Wisconsin. I think that's a nice 1-2 combination here. It's a make-or-break year, I think, for Luke Fickell. I think he knows that. He's bet on Colton Joseph. And I think Joseph, who had a pretty decent amount of offers out there, made a sneaky good decision. I think he's flying under the radar. I think you can get him very late in Devy drafts. A player who I think is going to go much earlier in Devy drafts, if he's available this offseason, is wide receiver Reed Harris. So I was watching Lewis Bond for my 2026 rookie class review, and I couldn't focus on Lewis Bond because I was just watching Reed Harris. He was jumping out the tape. 39 receptions this season, 5 touchdowns, 17.3 yards per reception. And folks, that is amazing in the context of the Boston College offense. It was a really broken passing attack in particular this year. They did add Amarian Miller as well at Arizona State, but I'm more excited about Reed Harris. And I think he takes over the wide receiver 1 role. He takes over the Jordan Tyson field stretching role. He's 6'5". He's over 200 pounds. He's got good size. As we move on to numbers 19 and 20 here, folks, if you are enjoying this video, do me a huge favor. I haven't done a transfer portal video like this before, so I would love your feedback. If you're enjoying it, drop me a comment, let me know. and I will put out a fallers video. It's not all positives. There are certainly some players who I think hurt their draft stock through the transfer portal, hurt their Devy value through the transfer portal. So please drop me a comment if you want more of this content. I'm happy to put it together, but I want to make sure it's useful for you before I do that. At 20, it's Devin McEwen. He's coming off of wide receiver out of UTSA, more of a day 3 draft projection for me at this point in time, but super productive for the Roadrunners over the last 3 seasons. 150 receptions, 16 touchdowns. It's a rare positive opportunity to transfer into Ohio State. They have Carnell Tate off to the NFL draft, and they have both Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham, the two guys who are next up in the wide receiver room. They have both transferred to Notre Dame. So McEwen could come in and see 50, 60 targets realistically right off the bat. I think he could contribute to special teams as well. So I think a really versatile guy, and he's going to go from, probably fully off the draft radar. Maybe he earns a Shrine Bowl invite to playing on a national stage here. And he could be a legitimate locked in day 3 prospect this time next year. I am super excited about Terrell Anderson, the wide receiver at NC State. He's going to USC. And I just don't think enough folks are talking about it. Really productive within the confines of the NC State offense, a little bit more run heavy with the dual threat quarterback there in CJ Bailey. 39 receptions, 5 touchdowns, 16.1 yards per reception. I think Terrell Anderson has the opportunity to play in the Jacoby Lane role. He's got a large body as well. He's athletic. I think he could stretch the field in a very similar way. But I think Terrell Anderson could have closer to Makai Lemon volume. And so we very well, I've got an early day 3 projection on him right now. He is 2027 eligible. Quite frankly, he could be more of a top 50 type guy. I think that's his ceiling. Lincoln Kienholz. Kienholz waited his turn at Ohio State, didn't end up winning out that job, but got consistent positive reports from the Ohio State beat. And I do care about these beat reports and what they're saying at spring ball, in practice. And Kienholz didn't back down from the competition at any point. Well, he's going to Louisville, where he can play in Jeff Brom's scheme. It's a very quarterback-friendly scheme. It's had a really good track record. If you just forget about Miller Moss this past year, Brom had been in a really good way with raising the profile of his quarterbacks, making them productive. In Kienholz, he's got a little dual threat opportunity here. So he is 2027 eligible. I think he will want to play 2 years at Louisville, and we could be talking about him, as early as, early day 3 into day 2 of the 2028 NFL draft. Obviously the candidate for the best name in the transfer portal, it's Rocky Beers, the tight end out of Oklahoma. Well, he's also a good player, right? 31 receptions, 7 touchdowns in 2025 for Colorado State. I think he is the perfect underneath red zone option for John Mateer, right? We saw I don't want to say elite, but we saw really high level play from John Mateer at times this season. The injury happened, poor decision making at times. I thought Oklahoma State did a great job of identifying a reliable underneath option that could help Mateer, maybe rein in some of that gunslinger mentality. So I'm excited for Rocky Beers. He's one of my highest ranked tight ends from the transfer portal. I know he's not going to get, universal praise here, but I actually really like what Dylan Raiola did. I like the fact that he's going to go to Oregon. He's going to wait a year, and he's going to be put in a situation where he is going to look like a potential first-round NFL draft pick, right? If he came out today, he'd be a day 2 projection, right, in terms of what he's put on tape at Nebraska. But there is positives from his tape. He's got good short field accuracy. He's got good midfield accuracy. I think it's a really nice scheme match here with what Oregon is doing. I know they have the offensive coordinator turnover. It's the landing scheme. It's an internal promotion. So I think we're going to see more of the same this year. Another good year of Dante Moore. And then Dylan Raiola is going to pick up the reins. He's got good young wide receivers that are going to step into these high volume roles when it's his turn to take over. Look at the draft capital bump from the last 3 Oregon quarterbacks. I mean, Bo Nix was left for dead by the Devy community. first-round draft pick. He's a top 8 fantasy football producer. Dillon Gabriel, listen, I know he didn't end up having the fantasy season that some folks wanted, but he went from an undrafted free agent type guy. The whole thing with him was undersized, doesn't have the arm strength. Well, he ends up a day 2 selection. He ends up being a starting quarterback in the NFL. He got his shot. And Dante Moore, if he had declared this year, was pretty much a locked and loaded top 5 NFL draft pick. So it's value added for Dylan Raiola. He's going to take a season. He's going to learn. And I think we're going to be really excited about him going into 2028. Next up here is Mekhi Hughes. Remember Mekhi Hughes? He was awesome in his first 2 seasons at Tulane. And then I still do not know. One day we're going to get the story of what happened with him at Oregon. It just didn't work out. That's the bottom line. Well, he's reuniting with Willie Fritz, who he played for in his first season at Tulane. So he's got that familiarity with the coaching staff. He's staying in the Power 4. He's going down to the Big 12 where he should be able to rip apart the competition. I just can't forget the Tulane tape, folks. He looked instinctive. He looked decisive. He looked powerful in between the tackles. So I think he has every opportunity here. I think it's absolutely realistic to think Mekhi Hughes goes over 1,000 yards, puts up 10 touchdowns. And if he does that, I don't care if it's against Big 12 competition. He's a day 2 NFL draft pick. He's got the size. We've seen enough tape-wise. Folks, if you are enjoying this video, you want to get a further breakdown, I actually put together a Devy transfer portal tracker that has a full analysis, value up, value down for over 125 players, pretty much every fantasy relevant player you could think about. That's available over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard. The link is in the episode description. On top of that, you can get my rankings, Devy Dynasty rookie rankings, personalized access in the Discord. I'll have my combine primer coming out next month. I just dropped the Senior Bowl primer. Folks, there's a ton of stuff available starting at just $5 a month. Isaiah Horton, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. I think this is a sneaky good destination for him. If you look, the Aggies actually aren't super aggressive through the portal. I think they're very selective, but we have the KC Concepcion targets, right? He's going off to the NFL. He saw a huge bump in his draft stock going from NC State to Texas A&M and being that X receiver, catching balls from Marcel Reed, who showed more of an ability to throw downfield this year. If you watch the Alabama tape, especially when they were working at peak offense, to me, Isaiah Horton, I know Jeremy Bernard numbers-wise was the top guy in that offense, but you saw Isaiah Horton make a lot of big plays. He's a playmaker, and he's going to have an opportunity to make big plays on a big stage here for Texas A&M, who you better believe is gearing up and ready to go back for another swing at this national title in 2026. Up at 13 is quarterback Josh Hoover. Of course, you have to get the Indiana quarterback in play, right? I mean, looking back at the last 2 years, right? Kirk Cignetti got Curtis Rourke from a really high-level MAC player to a late NFL draft pick, right? You have Fernando Mendoza, who, I think going into this season, Mendoza was in that day 2 range in terms of just potential and talent, skill set. And, in the Cignetti offense, he's going to be the first overall pick, right? So you look at the type of quarterback that Cignetti has done well with, I think Josh Hoover is a good fit, right? So I would call them distributors, and, I don't mean that in a negative way. I think if you go back, especially 2024, Josh Hoover, it was a little bit down in his tape in 2025 at TCU, but go back, watch 2024 Josh Hoover tape, and you're going to see a guy who can distribute through the first 2 levels of the field, a guy who can take his shots downfield. He's got good enough arm strength. Again, I think you need to hone in some of that decision making. It went down in 2025, but we saw a guy with a high football IQ in 2024, and I believe in Kirk Cignetti to unlock that. He had some really nice weapons added alongside him. Nick Marsh, who we will get to later in this episode, Shaz Preston, the wide receiver formerly at Alabama, but most recently at Tulane. They're both added into the wide receiver room. You've got Turbo Richard from Boston College. He's coming in from Robin Hemby to be that in-between the tackle smasher type guy. If you look at the Indiana offense, right, the running game really helps balance the passing game, and I think Turbo Richard is going to be able to contribute right away and support Josh Hoover. So a really sneaky, he's not a low profile target because he's the Indiana quarterback, but I still think you can get him cheaper than you maybe should have to pay for him. Coming in at number 12, I really like the Parker Livingston fit. We have a weekly newsletter at the Rookie Big Board, and I break down Devy Risers week in and week out. And Parker Livingston, especially at the beginning of the season, he was a consistent feature in that column. I really liked what he was doing at Texas. Really weird situation that the Longhorns pretty much told him to kick rocks is what it sounds like from all indications. Well, I think Oklahoma is all the better for it. You've got the Deion Burks targets that Livingston's going to come in, step in, capture immediately. That's about 60, 70 targets, and I think he's going to get plus on top of that. The big thing for me with Parker Livingston, right, is he's a proven winner at all three levels of the field. I think it's going to be really nice for John Mateer while he's throwing over the middle of the field, but I also do think it gives him a downfield target in a way that maybe Deion Burks didn't quite give them this season. And I do like Deion Burks. We're going to be talking about him plenty in the 2026 draft cycle, so I don't mean to knock him, but I just think Parker Livingston, he's got a little bit more juice when it comes to stretching downfield. I think he could be a really nice day 2 pick. Up here at 11 is Deuce Knight. Man, I know we only got one game of Deuce Knight. I know it was against Mercer, but I'm hooked. I'm in on it. In terms of his profile, his athleticism, and what he could be a top 50 NFL draft pick in 2028. He could be a first round NFL draft pick. He could be a top 10 NFL draft pick. That's in terms of his upside, his ceiling. We don't know if that's what we're going to see right away, but what we do know is he's going to be the day one starter. What we do know is he's got Kewan Lacey, one of the best runners in the country, to give him a supportive run game, right? And we do know that Deuce Knight is going to be asked pretty quickly to contribute with both his legs and his arm. I think he's going to be a really exciting player, and I think he's going to jump up Devy rankings after the first month of the 2026 college football season. Top 10 here, folks. Dorian Thomas, tight end out of New Mexico. He goes to Cal. I got to be honest, I had to sit with this one a little bit, but Cal is very sneakily stacking guys up. They added wide receiver Ian Strong from Rutgers. They added Adam Muhammad, the running back from Washington. So there's good players, and I'm forgetting about another good key wide receiver there for Cal. So, and they're all catching targets from JKS, who was arguably the best looking freshman quarterback last year. I'd say he's at least top 2, top 3 in that conversation. He's a big riser, but he chose to stay at Cal, which was a huge get for the Bears. And I think it helped him get guys like Dorian Thomas, who is an athletic pass catching tight end. So I think he starts off as a day 3 NFL draft projection, but very likely that he could move up into the day 2 conversation. Oklahoma State did fantastic through the transfer portal, and I know Eric Morris didn't have to do much, right? But you have to call Drew Mestemaker a riser through this process. I think Drew Mestemaker had other options out there. I firmly believe he had other Power 5 offers, and I firmly believe it was a good decision for him to stick with the scheme that he looked amazing in and put up huge numbers, right? Because not only did he get his same scheme, same head coach, same play caller, he gets his supporting cast around him. Caleb Hawkins is there. Wyatt Young is there. And Oklahoma State added some other sneaky good wide receivers as well. A little bit lower profile, but still really nice players. So when you look at Mestemaker, I see some really nice big play potential. I like his ability to push that ball downfield. And I think when you're thinking about how you win in the Big 12, pushing that ball downfield, high volume passing, you work short RPO stuff to open up downfield. I think Drew Mestemaker is going to absolutely smash there. I don't think Oklahoma State, is going to go the Cignetti route and get, 10 wins in their first season. But I think that they're in a position to quickly go, 7 wins, 8 wins, be a bowl team. And that's going to create a lot of steam and momentum. And that's going to help you compete in the Big 12. Raleek Brown heading to Texas. I think this is a really good spot. I loved Raleek Brown. He was one of my top sleepers in this 2026 class. I thought he was NFL ready. I thought he was a locked in day 2 pick. If you consider how Texas is going to use him, Sark is really good at scheming his running backs into space. And I think Raleek Brown can absolutely eat in space. I think he's going to contribute at a high level in the passing game, but he is not only a pass, he's not just a pass specialist. I think he's going to do well in the passing game, but I don't want you to think that, he's limited in that way. So I think it's going to be higher profile production. I don't know that he's going to produce more I don't know that he's going to get more total yards. I don't know he's going to get more touchdowns than he did at Arizona State, but we're going to be seeing him week in and week out. That does matter to evaluators. And if we're talking Devy fantasy football value here, that does matter to your league mates, right? You're watching the Texas running back ball out. You should say it should, maybe you're saying like it shouldn't affect value, but it does. And we need to be realistic about that. That profile is going to help Raleek Brown move up rankings. Here's a sneaky one, folks. If you're watching this full video and you have not heard of LJ Phillips Jr. yet, this is your key takeaway. This is your value play. This is your under the radar sleeper heading into this season. LJ Phillips Jr. He's coming out of FCS South Dakota, where he rushed for 1,920 yards. He rushed for 19 touchdowns. That was in 2025 in one season, 1,900 yards, 19 touchdowns. And this is South Dakota, right? They're playing high-level FCS competition. They are a high-quality FCS team. He is now at Iowa. This offensive line just was named the Joe Moore Award winner. They're not losing a lot. They're bringing back a lot of that offensive line group. I fully expect LJ Phillips to take the RB1 work over Kamari Moulton. You know, there will be two running backs. There will almost always be two running backs at Iowa, but I think LJ Phillips is the dude. He's got the frame. He's got the proven tape. He looks good. He passes the eye test. Right now, he's an early day 3 guy, but we could easily be talking about LJ Phillips as a lock day 2 guy heading into the 2027 NFL draft. I talked about his teammate just a moment ago, Hollywood Smothers, the running back out of NC State. He's landing at Texas. Now, when you think about how Smothers and Brown are going to play, complement each other, I think Smothers will get a little bit more between the tackles because he can really smash. He's physical. He's decisive. He's got good vision. When I watch Smothers, I like his ability to make guys miss in tight space, and he's productive in short yardage and red zone situations, right? So here's the key, and this goes for Hollywood Smothers, but this goes for Raleek Brown too. All they need to do, they just need to look efficient. And, the fact that they're going to have each other on the field, it's going to keep them fresh. Texas is looking for a 15-game season. They're not looking for a 10-game season. These guys, I think, are going to have fresh legs. They're going to look good as they head into, conference championship week, likely, college football playoff week. They're going to gain a lot of momentum at that point in time. I'm not saying this is Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, but I think Smothers and Raleek Brown are like 80% of what those two were able to do. You can split a college football backfield and both carry good draft and Devy value. Number 5 here is Caleb Hawkins. I talked about his teammate Drew Messmaker a little bit earlier. I love Caleb Hawkins. Just absolutely ridiculous freshman season, lit it up at North Texas. And I think it's absolutely realistic that we see him right away put up over 1,000 yards on the ground for the Cowboys here. Again, right? Same thing as Messmaker. He sticks with the scheme. He sticks with the supporting cast. There really shouldn't be too much of an acclimation period for either one of the Oklahoma State guys. At number 4 here, maybe a little bit higher than other folks are talking about, Noah Rogers. I like what Noah Rogers was able to do at NC State. I really like his hands, good production. I think he's speedy. He's quick in short space. He can win after the catch. I think he takes the Jeremy Bernard role and being a high, a reliable, trustworthy receiver in the first and second level of the field, similar to the way Jeremy Bernard was, and having the ability to win after the catch in a similar way that Jeremy Bernard did, that's going to be super valuable for Keelan Russell, who is very likely to be the starting quarterback for Alabama. He'll be a redshirt freshman. He'll have 0 starts to his name when he starts for them week 1 this year. So I think having a guy like Noah Rogers in an otherwise kind of unproven wide receiver room, I think that's going to be really important. I think Rodgers is on his way to day 2 NFL draft capital in 2027. Up here at 3 is Sam Leavitt, quarterback out of LSU. I know it's not like a spicy take to have Sam Leavitt at the top, but I do think he's a big riser here. Folks were talking about him as potentially as a first-round draft pick heading into the 2026 NFL draft. So at the beginning of the 2025 season, I should say. I didn't quite see that. I never saw that with Leavitt. I did watch his summer scouting evaluation, and what I saw was a guy who needed to hone in on his accuracy, a guy who needed the game to just slow down a little bit, stick to the pocket a little bit more. kind of clean up his ability in the pocket, the footwork, feeling pressure. And I think what's really nice about the Lane Kiffin scheme, and I don't say this in a disparaging way here, it hides flaws, right? It allows rushing quarterbacks to look good, right? And so, you think about Jackson Dart's skill set, and I think you could see a lot of similarities here to the way that he used his legs, the way Sam Levitt uses his legs, but it also made Jackson Dart look like a solid passer. And I think that Sam Levitt could benefit from that same approach. And it's Jace Brown, Trey Wilson, Trey Wilson, and Jackson Harris. That was I couldn't remember Eugene Wilson earlier when I was talking about Jace Brown. So he's got a lot of different weapons to throw to. Those guys win at different levels of the field. Jackson Harris a little bit more of a field stretcher, Trey Willis a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. So I think that Levitt has a variety of choices. Caden Durham is returning, so he's going to have a reliable running back. I mean, it really is the perfect situation for Levitt. I think he made a really good decision, as much as I hate to say that as a Tennessee Vols fan. And we're getting to our top two here. Nick Marsh, wide receiver, formerly at Michigan State, now at Indiana. Man, when he returned last year, I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing, Marsh? Because he had really excellent efficiency. He passed the eye test. I love his hands, excellent ball tracking ability. He separates really consistently along the boundary and over the middle of the field. I think he's an excellent fit with Josh Hoover. And if you're looking at vacated targets, folks, between Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper Jr., we're talking about over 125 vacated targets, right? And, I mentioned earlier, Shaz Preston's coming in. Of course, Charlie Becker has been a big part of this offense, but, Nick Marsh should step in and I think be wide receiver one right away. He's super talented. I think he's going to really pop off the tape. Again, if he's drafted today, he's a day 2 pick. We could easily be talking about a first round draft pick. We could easily be talking about, the wide receiver 2, the wide receiver 3 in next year's draft class. Cam Coleman, he's number 1, biggest winner, folks. Like anybody getting out of this Auburn offense. I talked about Malcolm Simmons earlier. I'll give a shout out to Perry Thompson as well. He went up to Minnesota. I like that landing spot. But Cam Coleman went from one of the absolute worst quarterback situations, one of the absolute worst offensive schemes in the country last year, to now being with one of the best quarterbacks in one of the best schemes in the country. It's an instant quarterback upgrade. It's an instant volume upgrade. It's a much better fit in terms of Arch Manning's ability to push the ball downfield. Much better fit for Cam Coleman's field stretching ability. Much better fit for his ability to go up and win jump balls with vertical ability and ball tracking. I think that we're looking at 8, 9, 10, 12 touchdowns for Cam Coleman. I don't think that's being, hyperbolic or unrealistic. I think we're looking at 1,000 yards plus for Cam Coleman. Top 20 NFL draft pick, could easily be top 10 NFL draft pick. I don't know that he's got a shot to unseat Jeremiah Smith as wide receiver 1 in 2027, but I do think he has a shot to be in the conversation. And folks, I always love to be in the conversation with you. Drop a comment. Let me know what you thought about this video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, maybe this is the first time you're checking it out. Maybe you just haven't bothered to subscribe yet. Make sure you do. We have a ton of NFL draft content coming your way. We're always covering rookie and Devy value 365 days of the year. And folks, in just 2 short weeks, we are starting our rookie profile series where we break down over 30 of the top rookies in the 2026 NFL draft. So much good stuff will be here on the YouTube channel. And again, even better, over at patreon.com/rookiebigboard rankings, my Devy transfer portal tracker, Senior Bowl primer, combine primer, rookie guides coming out, personalized advice in the Discord. So much over there. Going to be back real soon.